Welcome back, film fanatics, to the Film Nostalgia. Today we're taking a deep dive into the wild, untamed world of 1970s exploitation cinema. These were the films that pushed every boundary, often shocking audiences and critics alike. Join us as we revisit some of the most infamous, and sometimes surprisingly influential, titles from this unforgettable era. First up, a bona fide classic that launched an entire genre, Night of the Living Dead from 1968. Directed by the visionary George A. Romero and starring Dwayne Jones, this film follows a group of strangers trapped in a farmhouse, besieged by flesh-eating zombies. It redefined horror by presenting a bleak, nihilistic vision where traditional heroes fail and hope is scarce. Every zombie show out there owes a tip of the hat to this groundbreaking movie that started it all. The film's low-budget, gritty realism and its shocking, almost documentary-style violence, including child zombies eating their parents, truly disturbed audiences. Its raw, unvarnished portrayal of human panic and societal collapse, coupled with the tragic fate of its lead character, pushed boundaries and redefined what horror could be. Next, we shift gears to a powerful and fantastic A-grade film from 1967, In the Heat of the Night. Directed by Norman Jewison, this movie featured the incredible Sidney Poitier as Virgil Tibbs, a black homicide detective from Philadelphia who becomes involved in a murder investigation in a racially charged Mississippi town. The film bravely tackled themes of racism and prejudice head-on, presenting a serious and intelligent portrayal of racial tensions. While not an exploitation film in the traditional sense, its unflinching depiction of systemic racism and the societal attitudes of the time were deeply unsettling for many audiences, particularly those accustomed to less confrontational portrayals of race relations in Hollywood. As one viewer stated, "To this day, the end of that movie is the saddest, most gut-twisting ending ever, to me." Now for a film that many still find unparalleled in its audacity, Caligula from 1979. Directed by Tinto Brass with some uncredited direction and starring Malcolm McDowell, this movie delves into the life of the Roman Emperor Caligula, portraying his descent into madness and depravity. It pushed the boundaries of historical drama into outright excess, with an unprecedented amount of explicit sexual content and graphic violence, blurring the lines between art and pornography. As one viewer noted, "To this day I've never seen anything that even approaches Caligula." The film's extreme and often unsimulated acts of sexual violence and its portrayal of hedonistic cruelty were designed purely to shock and titillate, making it profoundly disturbing and a peak example of how far exploitation cinema would go. Prepare yourself for Last House on the Left, the original from 1972. Directed by Wes Craven and starring Sandra Peabody and David Hess, this film follows two teenage girls who are brutally attacked and murdered by a gang of sadistic criminals, who then unknowingly seek refuge at the home of one of the victims' parents. The parents then exact their own brutal revenge. This film quickly gained a reputation for being one of the most disturbing movies of its time, pushing the boundaries of on-screen violence and revenge. Its raw, almost documentary-style depiction of rape, torture, and murder, coupled with the agonizing moral compromises faced by the victims' parents, was intentionally exploitative, designed to shock and horrify audiences with its unflinching brutality and lack of cinematic polish. For a true nasty treat from the 70s, look no further than David Cronenberg's first horror movie, Shivers, also known as They Came From Within, released in 1975. Starring Paul Hampton, this film explores a parasitic outbreak in a luxurious, isolated apartment complex, leading its residents to shed their inhibitions and succumb to primal, unrestrained sexual urges. The film's disturbing nature came from its exploration of sexual perversion, the loss of individual control, and the transformation of polite society into a hedonistic, violent mass. The explicit sexuality, body horror elements, and the unsettling idea of a pervasive, sexually transmitted parasite were designed to shock and disgust audiences, making it a quintessential piece of exploitation cinema. Next up, we have Mark of the Devil from 1970. Directed by Michael Armstrong and starring Herbert Lom and Udo Kier, this film is set in 18th century Austria and depicts the gruesome witch trials and tortures carried out by inquisitors. It became notoriously marketed with a real barf bag upon its initial release, promising an experience so visceral it might make you sick. The film's exploitative nature lay in its explicit and often prolonged depictions of torture, nudity, and sadism, presented with a shocking lack of restraint. The raw and unglamorous portrayal of flaying, burning, and other brutal acts was designed to assault the senses and genuinely disturb audiences, making it a hallmark of the Eurocult horror scene. Moving on, we come to a film that is truly worth a mention due to its rarity and impact. Ken Russell's The Devils from 1971. Starring Oliver Reed as Father Urbain Grandier and Vanessa Redgrave as Sister Jean, the film portrays the true story of religious hysteria, demonic possession, and political corruption in 17th century France. Its visceral imagery includes nuns engaging in orgiastic acts and scenes of graphic torture. The film's shocking content, which included sexually explicit depictions within a religious context and its unflinching portrayal of fanaticism, led to significant censorship and even outright bans. Its deliberate provocation and exploration of taboo subjects made it deeply disturbing and an exemplar of challenging extreme cinema for its time. Now, for a film that stands alone in its disturbing nature, Pier Paolo Pasolini's Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom, released in 1975. Based on the notorious novel by Marquis de Sade, this film is set during World War II and depicts four wealthy fascists who abduct young men and women, subjecting them to extreme physical, psychological, and sexual torture. Widely considered one of the most controversial and brutal movies ever made, it is an unflinching depiction of power, degradation, and sadism. Its graphic and unsimulated acts of violence, rape, and humiliation were designed to be utterly repellent and profoundly disturbing, making it a definitive example of extreme exploitation cinema that actively sought to sicken its audience. No discussion of shocking 70s cinema would be complete without Stanley Kubrick's 1971 masterpiece, A Clockwork Orange. Starring Malcolm McDowell as Alex DeLarge, a charismatic leader of a gang of droogs who engage in ultraviolence. After his capture, Alex undergoes an experimental aversion therapy designed to cure his violent tendencies. The film's portrayal of teen violence and hooliganism and its unflinching depiction of rape and brutality were deeply disturbing. Kubrick himself had the film pulled from theaters in England due to the controversy it generated. The film's stylized violence, its exploration of free will versus state control, and its uncomfortable ambiguity about rehabilitation made it profoundly unsettling and highly exploitative of contemporary fears about youth crime and social decay. Finally, for a film that truly embodies brutal and weird 70s cinema, we present The Black Gestapo from 1975. Directed by Lee Frost and starring Rod Perry, this blaxploitation film follows a group led by General Ahmed, who form a militant organization called the Black Gestapo to protect the ghetto from white mobsters. However, their methods quickly become as brutal as those they oppose. The film's exploitative nature lies in its sensationalist title, its highly stylized violence, and its controversial racial themes, often pushing boundaries for shock value rather than nuanced social commentary. It delivered raw action and a provocative premise, directly appealing to audiences seeking extreme and politically charged thrills typical of the exploitation market. And that wraps up our journey into the shocking world of 70s exploitation films. Whether you love them or find them unsettling, there's no denying the impact these movies had on cinema. What are your favorite, or perhaps most memorable, exploitation films from that era? Let us know in the comments below. The